Hi everyone, Anthony Morganti here. A few days ago I did a video where I talked about everything that was new and exciting in the latest version of On1 Photo RAW. One of the things that I talked about in that video that was new in On1 was that On1 now supported JPEG-XL files or JXL files. In that video, I mentioned that JPEG-XL files or JXL files are superior to your everyday run-of-the-mill JPEG. Well, that statement elicited a lot of comments and a lot of questions. In today's video, I want to talk about why I said that, and I want to eat a little crow too, because I might have overstated how really effective and good JPEG-XL files are. Now, we're going to be working in Lightroom only because there is another file type, a newer file type, that is also available in Lightroom that I also want to compare everything to because it has its place and reasons why you may want to use it over a JPEG or a JPEG-XL file. Now, we're going to be working on an Adobe stock image. As you can see, this is the image here, but we're actually not going to be working on the JPEG version of this image. What I did was I took this image over into Photoshop and I clipped the model out from the background and I saved it as a PNG file. The reason why you may want to save an image as a PNG is because a PNG file will preserve the transparency. You'll notice that in the PNG file, the blue background is gone and we have this checkerboard pattern. And again, the reason why you may want to do this is if you were in an application such as Photoshop and you wanted to do some compositing. If you have a PNG file where you preserved the transparency, you could easily take the model with the move tool and move that person or thing or whatever it is you clipped out into another scene very easily. So that is why we would often use PNG files because it was the most convenient file type to use when we wanted to preserve the transparency. Now, one advantage of a JPEG-XL file is that the JPEG-XL file will preserve the transparency so that we don't have to then save it as a PNG file. But again, I might have overstated this though, and let me explain why. We're going to work with this PNG file and we're going to export it in various different file formats. So let's bring up the export dialog box and let's first export it as an everyday run-of-the-mill JPEG. This is the JPEG that's been around for years. I am going to put the quality at 100. So we're going to compare apples to apples. And for each export, I will always have quality at 100. And we're going to always use the ProPhoto RGB color space. And we're never going to use HDR output. I'm never going to limit the file size, and you'll see that JPEGs are only available as 8-bit depth images. So this image will only have 256 available colors, which in most cases is fine. All right, so let's then go up here and let's rename this. And we'll change it to a custom name, and I'm just going to call this JPEG. So it's going to be JPEG.jpg. And we're going to export it to the desktop. Now let's do another export. This time we're going to do a JPEG XL file. So I'm going to rename it JPEG.XL. And we're going to do an 8-bit. All right, so we're going to do 8-bit. We'll go back down here now. We're going to go to that JPEG XL. Again, we're going to put the quality at 100. We're going to use the ProPhoto RGB color space. We're not going to use HDR output, but we now have an option to choose 8-bit or 16-bit per components. The reason why you may want to use a 16-bit per component is because you have a lot more colors available. With 8-bit, as I mentioned, you only have 256 colors available. With 16-bit, you have 65,536 colors available. So that in it itself is an advantage over JPEG, the normal everyday JPEG, because with a normal everyday JPEG, all you have available is 8-bit. But let's still compare apples to apples. Let's go with this 8-bit, all right? And we'll export that. All right, now once that exports, we'll bring up the export dialog again, and now we'll export it as a 16-bit JPEG-XL file. So I'm going to change the file name to reflect 16-bit, and then we'll go down here and we're going to change this to 16-bit, and we'll go to export. Okay, once that exports. Now, you may notice too that there was this other option down here, lossless quality. With lossless quality, if I check that, you'll notice that the quality slider disappears. What this will do is every JPEG and every JPEG-XL file has some compression done to it, but it is typically a loss compression, meaning that when it gets compressed and then when you go to display it, it uncompresses, it won't know what some of that information is, and it will interpolate that information. So it guesses. So it may not be an exact representation of what your image was when you were editing it in Lightroom, On1, Photoshop, whatever. If you check lossless, though, it will be a bit for bit exact image when it is uncompressed and displayed. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do that at 16-bit as well. So we'll do that. It's there. Oops, I got to change the name. Let's cancel that. I'm sorry, I forgot to change the name. And we'll change the name up here to JPEG lossless. Okay. JPEG-XL lossless, I should say. Okay. And then we'll go back down here. So it's lossless quality, and we'll click export. Now, I mentioned that in Lightroom, there is actually another file type available that is a newer file type that you may want to consider using because it does have one distinct advantage. Let me bring it up, and we're going to go down and just look at it first. It is an AVIF file, so it's .avif. This is similar to JPEG. We have a quality slider. We'll put it at 100. ProPhoto RGB. You'll notice there's bit depth here, and it's grayed out. It's 10 bits per component. So it has more colors available than your typical 8-bit JPEG or 8-bit JPEG-XL file, but it doesn't have as many as a 32-bit JPEG-XL file. So it's a little better as far as bit depth, but not a lot. But let's go with that, and we got to change the name to go up here to AVIF. All right, and we'll save that. Okay, so we have all these different file types saved. Let's minimize this, and let's look at the images on my desktop first of all. You can see that there's a number of the images here, and I'm going to, I already have the PNG file opened up into Photoshop. Let's look at all of them first. Let me do this. Select them all with Marquee Select and hit Command-I on my Mac, and it'll bring up all these info boxes. Here is, right here is the original PNG file. It's the second one right here. All right. You'll notice that this is 15.2 megabytes. So it's a pretty large file, but it is a 16-bit PNG file, and that's usually what we would save these as. So it does have 65,536 colors available, and it has all that bit depth available. But you also could save this as an 8-bit PNG file. That's this file right here, which I didn't do in Lightroom. I did in Photoshop before I started the video. And you'll notice that this one is only 4.6 megabytes. So this PNG file, it's 8-bit and only has 256 colors available, but it's a lot smaller than this PNG file. Then we have the typical everyday run-of-the-mill JPEG file. This is an 8-bit file, and it does not preserve transparencies, and it's 4.6 megabytes. So it's the exact same size as the 8-bit PNG. But it's not as big as the regular 16-bit PNG, but it doesn't have the model clipped out of the background. When it has a checkerboard clipped out background and you export it as a JPEG, what it will do is it will just put white back there. And I'll show you that in a moment. Now here's the new file type, JPEG-XL. All right, this is the 8-bit version. And you'll notice this is way bigger. This is where I probably overstated how great JPEG-XL files are. It's 20.6 megabytes. Yes, this preserved the transparent background, but it is way bigger than even the 16-bit PNG file. So the 16-bit PNG file is actually a better file than the 8-bit JPEG-XL file because the 16-bit PNG file has 65,536 colors available, and the 8-bit JPEG-XL file only has 256 colors available. The 16-bit JPEG file now is pretty much feature for feature identical to the 16-bit PNG file, but it is still bigger, 19.4 megabytes compared to 15.2 megabytes. And the JPEG-XL that had lossless compression checkbox checked, this is the largest file of all. It's 30 megabytes. But this file is the best file type because the compression is lossless. So when it uncompresses the file and displays it on your screen, it's going to be an exact bit-for-bit representation of what you saw when you edited the image. Now, I mentioned that there's that newer file type .avf. This is a 10-bit file, so it has a few more colors than an 8-bit file. And it's the smallest file type available, 3.1 megabytes. But unfortunately, the transparency is not available with this file at all. So with this said, let's get rid of these two PNGs. The 8-bit PNG does have transparency, and let's just put this AVF here as well. Let's open all the other file types up into Photoshop, along with the original 16-bit PNG and with the living room scene that we had in there. And you'll notice that they opened up in Adobe Camera Raw to begin with. So let's just select them all in the film strip here and then open them up into Photoshop proper. Once they open in Photoshop, what we have here, we have the living room. Then we have the original PNG. This is a 16-bit PNG. Then we have the regular everyday run-of-the-mill JPEG. Notice that the background is white, whereas the clipped out images, we have a checkerboard. Here's the AVF file. Notice the background is white, so it's similar to the JPEG, but it has 10-bit color. Here is the lossless image. This is the largest file of all of them. So technically, this should be the best quality image, period, because the compression was lossless, and it's a 16-bit file with 65,536 colors. Here's the 16-bit file that used loss compression, or lossy compression is probably the more correct term to say. And this one, though, does have all those colors, and you can see that we have the checkerboard background. And here's the 8-bit one, which only has 256 colors, and we preserve the transparency. So when you preserve the transparency, again, you could just take her and move her and put her in another scene. You could see with all these ones with the checker background, I could do that with. And this original Adobe, or the original PNG. But with the JPEG, with the white background, notice when I try to move her, it won't let me, and it comes up with I need to convert the background layer to normal layer. And then I can move it, but the background is moving with her. So if I take her up to put her in another scene, the background is there with her as well. So we could undo that. And the same thing with the AVF file. If I try to move this, it won't let me. I need to convert it to a normal layer, and then it moves the background with it. So I definitely did overstate how great JPEG-XL files in that video I did when I was talking about what was new in On1 Photo RAW 2025. But in most instances, you're probably, if you're just doing transparent backgrounds, you probably would prefer to just save it as an 8-bit, as long as the colors aren't that important. You probably just want to save it as 8-bit, an 8-bit PNG, which is right here. Let me open this up into Photoshop. So that 8-bit PNG, which is this one, you notice she's clipped out, so I can move her into another image if I wanted to. But again, it's only 256 colors, because this is the smallest of the clipped out images. But again, you're limited with the colors. So hopefully that clears up that a little bit, because a lot of people were rightfully telling me that I was overstating how great JPEG-XL files were. And then a lot of people really were confused about JPEG-XL in general, why it might be better than a JPEG and stuff like that. Now, as far as compatibility, of course, you have to make sure that whatever you're exporting the image for, that whatever can handle a JPEG-XL file. Like, for instance, Instagram now accepts JPEG-XL files, so you could upload it there. I know, like, if you're writing a Substack newsletter like I do, or a Medium newsletter like I do, then they'll take JPEG-XL files as well. They also take a .avif files, so those work as well. But on the other hand, there might be something you use out there, I don't know, that doesn't accept JPEG-XL files, or if they do accept it, they're going to automatically convert it to a JPEG file, which defeats whatever purpose you wanted for that JPEG-XL file because you exported it that way. So you need to check ahead of time to make sure. And also, too, if you are sending these off to a printer to get printed, you have to make sure that they take JPEG-XL files. They may not want those at all. They may only want JPEGs. A lot of them might charge you extra. I know a few do. They charge you extra if you send them a TIFF file, because TIFF files are 16-bit, can be 16-bit if you export it that way with more available colors and so on. But a lot of times they'll charge you extra for something like that. A lot of them, too, the color space, they want an sRGB color space. They don't want you to use Adobe RGB or ProPhoto RGB or any of those other larger color spaces. So with that, just make sure you check where you're using the image with, that whatever you export it as is compatible with whatever they accept. And you'll be good to go. So that's it. That's this new JPEG-XL files or JXL files in Lightroom and On1 Photo Raw. Thank you, everyone who watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.